Have you ever wondered why Live Plus CG shots looks more convincing than full CG shots? I think reason is quite simple. Let me explain it. Take this one for instance. I took this plate, added bunch of CG elements and shot looks really cool. And that's because I use this plate as a reference, like take this trees as example. These small details and the crisp details on the trees that rocks as a scaling reference and the entire shot as a lighting setup. I can simply see the shot and do the lighting, and all that helps me to emphasize the realistic feel in my CG renders, and that's what we want in VFX. And there is one more benefit when you work with the Live Plus CG is you don't need to build the entire shot, or you don't need to render entire shot. It's just few element or just few layers and shot is done. So let's go a bit deeper and break down this shot step by step and see what I did to build this shot. I took this plate into Nuke. I'll show you the project setting first. I used 50 frame at start and 450 at end. So that means I used only 400 frames in total, and the FPS is 24 and format is 2K. And color space I'm using the OCIO at 1.2. And before I start the shot, I undistorted the plate. So undistortion is the process where we remove all the stretch from the plate. If you take a close look, the plate looks stretched. It's because the focal length. There is one video which explains more about the focal length and why we use the undistortion plate in VFX. This might give you more idea about the distortion and undistortion in Nuke. Then using the undistorted plate, I started tracking. For tracking, I did not do it in Blender. I just tracked the shot in Nuke using camera tracker. Please check out this video and you will get more idea about the camera tracking in Nuke. This has I used camera tracking in almost all my videos, and this explains some important points. And once the camera tracking is done, using this point cloud data, I generated the rough mesh using the point cloud generator, and this is how my mesh looks like. And later I exported this point cloud data and the mesh using the right geo, and that I can use in Blender. So now let's jump into Blender. Let's import that camera data I exported from Nuke. Import Alembic and paste the path here and then grab it. So this weird mesh, get rid of it by going to object, convert to mesh, and we see this camera data in Nuke. So this is the mesh I was talking about, and this will help me to add the CG object, and this is the point cloud, and this is the camera. We will use the same project settings that we used in Nuke. I'll keep it 2K, 2048 into 1080, and the FPS will be 24, and frame length is same 50 to 450. I also imported the footage, so we can see this mesh is moving with the footage, and this is how my mesh looks like with the camera view. So this will definitely give me more idea, or it will be more easy for me to add CG stuff into it. Let's grab one more viewport. First I have added the ground object. Let's hide the mesh, we don't want to see it now. So adding mesh is really easy. When you have the correct point data, just select some of the points, go to edit and select some of the points like this one, or maybe this one, and also this one. I'll grab this guy as well and press F. You will get this plane because it will fill the gap. Go to the normal mode, and then you have this mesh. This will help me to add any CG object. Like if I now add any CG object, let's say I want to add a character here, and I'll just add it and make it small and see it from the camera view. So now my object is exactly in that place, and this is very quick. I don't need to find that point and place it. I can directly add it there. Or there is one more method. I'll just go to the edit mode again. I'll select any 2 points or 1 point. I'll just select these 2 points and shift S and cursor to selected. Now my cursor is there, and then go back to normal mode and select this object, shift S and selection to cursor. So my object is there now. So using this method, I simply started adding a lot of CG objects and started creating my layout. So I'll show you the layering one by one and you will understand the whole scene. I don't want this. I'll just delete this mesh, delete this guy as well. I'll turn off this cloud because it will make some confusion. So this setup has the camera, point cloud, and the lights and the rough geometry that I created. So I'll just minimize it and we'll keep the camera on. First thing, let's open the background. I took this lot of elements and added it in the background. So these are basically just in the same depth that we see in the point clouds. So let me open the point cloud here, or just open this rough geo, and in my rough geo, like if I select this geo and make the visibility wire, so you will get it more better visibility here. So I use this point, like if I select these points, yeah, and exactly I placed my pillar there. So it will be very easy for me when I have this rough geo, and When you have this kind of drone shot and there is no disturbance in your scene, try to create one geometry and it will definitely help you a lot in Blender. I'll also make it so wireframe. So this is my first layer, I mean the background layer, and I use these pillars and some of these stairs and some of these extra elements to add some more complexity or make the shot looks more interesting. And second layer is the midground, and the same process I used. I took this object and used that as a location reference, and using these points I just selected and shift S and cursors to selected and added those CG object exactly in that position. So these are from Sketchfab. I took these night models and did tricking using the Mixamo and just made them look like they are sitting on the ground. I just added this position using the pose mode, just played with some pose mode, and this is how it looked like. And use the sword model as well. This is also free model. These two are free model from Sketchfab. I will share the link for these objects. I wanted to make it look like these are the two big structures in front of this castle or this palace or something. And then comes the midground 2. I took these extra elements and added just in front of this to get this more information or this details in front of it. Let me hide the rough geo and it will be more clear. And then added midground 3, which is these elements, some vegetation and some stairs like structures. And then comes the foreground. So for the foreground I used like extra details because this is more closer to the camera and I wanted to read more better details. So I use this horse model and then some of these nice structures which gives more cinematic look to the shot as well, because this information gives a lot of depth to the shot, and that is the reason I wanted to more object in the more detailed object in the foreground. And then for the water, I use this water surface, added some water like textures. Let's go to the material view and I'll turn off this element. So this is just a basic water surface. There is no much work done in this. And if I go and see it with the shaders, so this is just a basic shaders using the noise that I used in my previous video as well, and I added slide animation in the water using the noise. I use this noise pattern. I use this water surface because I wanted to reflect some of the castle inside the water, because if I see it from the camera angle, it technically should do that thing because the camera angle is like that. And when you are adding a lot of CG details in the background, that should reflect in the water surface as well in the foreground. And I also added this boat. Again, this is from Sketchfab. I used some boat and that has the cloth. So it was a solid object. Then I used the edit method and removed some of the faces to make it look like a stone. As you see, there is a lot of vegetation happening on the nights and the background layer. I used IV generator, which is the free add-on. I'll share the link for that. And using that, I added a lot of vegetation, which is not heavy. So that is one more reason I always have the nice folder structure, because when you have more folders or more layering, that means you have more control to render and file. There is no chance of crashing the file. And one more important thing, go to the lighting view. These rocks are not visible in Nuke. If I take up my render and check, so in this FG layer you don't see that rocks that I added in Blender, just the horse and the castle and the trees, whereas in 3D you are seeing this extra details in the foreground. I'm not using them directly, I'm using them as holdouts here. So let's go to that folder and check what I did. So I'm keeping them separate, see the layering name, I already did that as a holdout. So this FG holdout, if I turn on this holdout option here, so these are not visible, they are just acting as cliff and they're cutting out the element, so that will sit well in 3D. As I shown in Blender, these are the FG layer. We have holdout here and we don't see that rocks because those are invisible. If I on it and I move it down, you don't see any object are visible just behind that line, behind that surface. That's because we have a holdout thing happening there as well. If I just move this night, you will see that night is not visible under that surface from this point of view, because that is how holdouts are working here. Let's undo it and see what is happening. So I use this plane and this is unbound, so that's why it's look like this. So I'll make the visibility normal, solid, and view it from the solid view. So I have this plane. I did some modification, first I took a plane and I just started doing some modification using the point cloud. So let's turn off this one and turn on the point cloud. and I just added some subdivisions to it. Just selected these areas like that, and just few points like this. And this is like roughly I try to match with the ground using the point cloud and just try to see the point clouds more close. Like here I don't see any point cloud, so let's add more subdivisions and select this area and take it a bit down, so we will get that deformation in the plate. And these are like not close to the point cloud, so I'm moving it more up. And then once I ready with the geometry, I'll just set it to hold out. I'll put it in a separate folder, round 2, and add it in the ground. And once I have that ground, I can simply now use that as a holdout. So I'll turn off this one. I don't want to see that the previous one. I'll just keep it everything off. So my ground looks like this. Right now it's working simple object, like a solid object. I don't have any like holdout thing happening. I'll simply use this button and make it hold out. Now if I move the ground up, it will definitely chop up the things. And then it's also making the overall thing brighter because it has that white shader. I can also add some shader to that, like simply take a new material and I'll make it darker so it won't create the bounce light very bright. So these are the only two important things to make this shot: holdouts and the placement. And then use some of the object like these ones as a blocker. So again, blocker, you can check in my previous video. These blockers are just to block some like lights in the shot. In this case, if I see this place is getting a bit darker, if I remove it, it will be more brighter, and I don't want that. The reason I added the blocker there is if I take a look at it with the 3D or the camera angle, you see there is a cliff, and I assume that there won't be more light in this area, and these clips should cast some shadows. So that's the reason I'm trying to add that blocker here. And these are not visible in the render because I'm using them indirectly. Like, so this is the blocker folder, I'm using them indirect, so when I click it, they are not visible in the render, but they're still contributing their role. And what else? And the lights, this is really important thing, I shouldn't have skipped it. So light, I using the sunlight this time. So in the world scene, let's remove the transparency. So this is a really basic HDRI. I'm using it from Polyheaven. This is the background which almost looks like plate, and then I use the exposure values like 0.6, but this is not really important. The important thing is the sunlight that I'm adding into the shot. Like I added this sunlight here and then placed the angle like it should match the plate, so it is creating some shadows with that angle. If I take a close look in the plate, I can see shadow and the angle of the light in the plate itself, so I can take our plate as a reference and add the lighting here in Blender and did overall balance, like keeping the intensity of that light almost like strength with the strength of 5. And also color management, I used Blender 5.0 has the ACS support now, so this is a really big thing when you work with the Hollywood level shots. So I'm using ACS 1.3 and working space also ACS CG. So this is the biggest update in Blender 5.0. And then I took all these renders in separate layers, just like what we see here. Whole FG layer is in one layer, and then the boards are in one layer, and likewise all the rest of the layers. Now let's go to the nuke. So these are the track data we already saw. Now let's see all the comp file. So this is my entire comp, which looks like this. These are the CG renders that I used from Blender. So let's go one by one and see all those renders. So this is the background layer, and this is midground. Some details in the midground too, like midground 2, midground 3, and something in the FG. And then comes the birds. These birds are generated using the bird I think it's bird generator. It's a free add-on. I'll share the link for this one. It's just you can draw path and it will create the birds. This is really simple and very useful one. And this is the water surface with the boat shadowing, and these are the boat. I used 2 boats before and I don't wanted to add the screen right side boat. It looks too much in the shot, so I just took only one. And this is the VDBs I used in the foreground. Since it's FG, I wanted to read some dimensions, so I used the VDBs here. And for the background, I just used 2D elements. And this is the camera from Nuke itself. Let's see how I did the compositing there using all these renders. So this one scan, I did some grading to the scan. I'll show why I did this grading later. And this one is of course just behind that hole in the background, and added some details in that. Like I took this castle interior image and just added it on top of that. So when I add CG background, we see some interior, and I wanted to add some small details inside it, otherwise it will look pitch black, just like a black patch there. So I'm just adding some 2D data, 2D information inside that castle. So if I don't do this, it will be see-through, and I don't want that, so I just added some constant and make it dark. And the reason I did this grade, when I did the castle, I can either create some shadowing here in that area, or I can create some brightness here to show that this castle is casting some shadows in, like it's making the shot darker in this area. So with that grade, making that brighter, we feel that because of this castle we have some darkness here in the plate. So that was the idea. And comes the background layer. I did some compositing to this, like raw render look like this, and then did that compositing thing using crypto mats and all that typical compositing thing. I just made it look like to sit with the plate. So doing that black levels and everything definitely helps, otherwise it will look very different. Let me show you that. So if I simply add it as is, it looks too different because we have to match some colors and also the black levels and everything. So with that, it looks really good with when you match the black levels. Please check out this Godzilla video where I added the information about adding the black levels, on how to use the plate black levels and match it. It will be very easy and quick, so please check out that and you will understand it. Yeah, there are some 2D birds. This is free footage from YouTube, I think. I downloaded it long back and use those birds. I made them look like they are in the PG and added them on the card and placed them on the exact position of that place. So for card, I don't need to go back to Blender this time because shot is tracked in Nuke. So I can simply double click the camera and select the point, right click, create card, and I can simply use that card and place some 2D elements on that. So my birds are there in that position, and I don't have to do roto because we are using that geometry to cut out the or hold out the thing. So our render is already held out, and that's why it's looking exactly that. We're reading that curve and it's sitting well with the plate. And after this layer, I thought of adding some 2D elements to sit it together. Like all those elements are really helping me to blend the shot and give that moody or overall ambience in the shot. And comes the midground layer. These characters, again I did a lot of 2D grading to that, like using crypto mat and position pass and all, and I just added it on top of my comp again. And then 2D elements, these cliffs and trees I wanted to add because this position of this, or this placement of the this character, I didn't really like. It looks like something else and I don't want it to just make it look very solid or cylindrical. So took some 2D elements, like I downloaded some images and like merge them together like 3 elements and place it on a card using some tree element as well. So this entire patch look like this tree plus this cliff, and added it here just in front of that knight character so that it will hide the position or the sitting pose of that. And on top I added some elements like to just blend the entire thing there. And one more thing, adding birds really brings the scale to the shot. I have read it somewhere, I watched it like multiple times. When you see the concept arts, most of the times artists use birds or clouds to bring this sense of scale. So exactly, it's helping me too. And then the midground layer too. This is like extra more details in the midground. So for this, if I don't do the roto thing here, like I have added some roto shapes and here as well. If I don't do that, my FG will come in front of this layer, like if I go to the last frame. And also for this knight character, if I remove the roto, these are like coming in front of the foreground. So I did some basic roto using the Mocha tracker and remove that area, so our layer will cut out here and we'll just see that as a holdout. So in compositing, you definitely need to do some roto thing to like blend everything, and that will really make a shot even natural. And more elements, I guess. Yeah, it's just the ground element again. Then comes the midground floor, just extra elements again, and did overall grading. Like if I just see to the plate raw render, it looks very dark, and did some grading, so just to sit them in the shot. And comes the CG birds. These are the birds I rendered from Blender, but these are EV renders, so it's rendered very quickly, just to give that like depth to shot, like they are flying from one point to another. And again, more element in this area. So in this corner, I wanted to fill it with some mist or some elements like this, so I added it there. And then boat, this is the CG boat render. It will be more visible in the first frame. Did some grading to that as well, like black levels and all. And this mist. So let's take a look at my water surface. This is the water surface I added. If I don't add that, then we don't see any connection between these CG element and the water. So just adding that water reflection with all that reflection inside this water gives a lot of sense to the shot. I think then comes the foreground. Yes, this layer, this gives more depth to the shot. Again, if I just use the raw renders, this looks very dark, and did some grading and overall thing, it looks a bit brighter and integrated. That's what we want here in VFX. And the birds again in the center of the frame, and extra mist. So this mist just took 2D elements and again use some crypto mats and hold out thing just to make it looks, it's like sitting well with the environment. And this is CG cloud. I'm keeping it very subtle because it's, if I don't do that and keep it like full here, it looks very weird and washed out. So I don't wanted to keep it like full. I just kept the values like 0.6. And then FG mist is like, it's a noise, and just added it on top, so a camera will just go through the FG mist. It's like very subtle, but it will give more sense when you see shot in the play. And that's all about the comping. And did some overall grading on top of my entire comp to get some cinematic look to the shot, like just color correction, getting that cyan look, and vignetting thing that I always do to the shot, like the lensing stuff. And I think this one is, yeah, this radial node is just to give that sense of, you know, color variation or the gradiency in the shot. Screen right corner, it looks a bit washed out, so it will give some misty feel there. And same in the reverse way, I took this shape here and made this area a bit darker, so we get that nice gradiency from here to here, like this part is getting washed out and this is getting contrasty. Just the framing thing, and just to think the shot in artistic way. So there is one thing when I added this CG stuff, so this was the undistortion thing I was talking about. So if I don't add that, we don't see the stretch in the CG to match with the plate. So plate has a stretch, so we want the stretch in the CG objects as well. And that's my entire comp. So building this kind of shots is easy when you follow each and every step. So my suggestion would be just try to understand things first. If you think it's more complex to add or build this kind of shots, start with one object in the shot. Let's take, you just want to add this boat in the shot and just try that first. Once you succeed, then go to the next point, like adding some extra details in the midground and then the background, and that way you can build a shot like this. And I hope you like this one, and I hope you guys have enjoyed, and let me know if you have any doubts or comments, and I will be happy to take a look. See you in the next video. Thank you.